Welcome, I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate, making broadcast great again. And we're going to charge Channel 9. That's the plan. I don't know how it works out, but it'll work. Mark Silverstein is with me from the ACLU. Later on in the program, we're going to talk a little bit about Colorado Concern. Mark, good to see you again. How you been?
Good to see you, John.
You've been doing this 20 years.
Almost.
20 years. We've been fighting about things for 20 years.
Well, 18 since I had to wait for you to come on to fight with you.
Well, actually, I fought when I was on the RTD board. You were on the opposite side of one of my little stunts.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We had a case, went to the 10th Circuit. But
yeah. You won the case, I won the war, which was to kill the tax increase. So that was pretty fun. I like that. I had more hair than you, about the same amount of hair.
As me?
Yeah, I had hair back then. All right. I want to talk to you about debtors' prison.
All right.
It is illegal to put somebody in jail for not paying their bills. Is that right?
It's been that way for almost 200 years in this country.
Almost 200 years, so not the whole time. There was a time when you didn't pay your bills, your creditors could have you thrown in jail.
I believe so, but early in this country's history, debtors' prisons were abolished. I think there was a federal statute to that effect.
Why? I mean, it seems like such a great motivator to get money out of people. Pay me or I'm going to put you to jail. I think certainly the principle that the Supreme Court has endorsed with regards to people who are fined for, say, an ordinance violation is that if somebody has the money and just refuses to pay, somebody can be put in jail to help change their mind. But if they don't have the ability to pay, then putting someone in jail for failure to pay is a violation of due process and equal protection. All right. Matter of fact, our founders felt strongly enough about that in this state. It's actually part of Colorado's Bill of Rights. We forget that the Colorado Constitution also has enumerated rights that we have as individuals, and one of them is not to be thrown in jail if we owe somebody money.
The 1876 Colorado Constitution says there shall be no imprisonment for debt.
Now, was this the original Constitution?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't an amendment later. This was part of the founding document that made Colorado a state.
That's right.
All right. Bring us to a couple years ago when you guys found out there was still some debtors' prison going on, or at least some debtors' jail going on. What was going on?
So what was going on? We saw that municipal courts were issuing warrants for what they called pay or serve. And what happened was if somebody went to municipal court for an ordinance violation, they were found guilty, a fine was imposed. If that fine wasn't paid, the municipal court issued a warrant, and the warrant might say something like, arrest this person and have them serve 10 days in jail or pay their $250 fine.
What kind of things did they do wrong to get the fine? I mean, are we talking about speeding tickets? What are we talking about?
I think one guy had a tail light out on his car, a very minor violation. In fact, his violation was not even a jailable offense, but yet he wound up doing 10 days in jail because he couldn't pay the fine that was imposed.
Let me kick this back to you because I want to make sure I understand it. So a guy has a tail light out, cop pulls him over, gives him a ticket. The ticket is a fine. All right? Mm-hmm. You can't go to jail, your tail light's out, it happens to everybody, but we want to discourage it, so pay the $100 fine. I can't imagine what it was, but let's say $100. Is it that the guy wouldn't pay, or that he couldn't pay, or does it not matter?
Well, it could matter legally. If it's that he wouldn't pay, the courts say you can put someone in jail for willfully refusing to pay. But this particular person who came and testified at the legislature 2 years ago, he couldn't pay. He had just lost his job. He had asked for more time to pay. The court didn't give it to him. And he didn't pay, and then it turns out there was a warrant that said pay or serve. The courts would credit you for days in jail at a certain daily rate. Some were $50 a day, some were $75 a day. The good-paying municipalities might give you $100 a day credit towards your fine.
So if you owe, let's say, $1,000, and you're credited $100 a day when you're in jail, instead of giving $1,000, it's either $1,000, 10 days in jail. Pardon my arithmetic here, but being a fiscal hawk, I got to wonder, it costs more to keep somebody in jail than what they're working off. I mean, so explain to me why it would be in the municipalities
best interest to put somebody behind jail that is going to cost them more money than what they could have received, but they're not even going to receive that.
I can't help you with that. You want to know why they do it and how it makes sense?
Right.
It doesn't make sense. It makes no fiscal sense. They don't get the money because after the 10 days in jail, the fine is forgiven, and then the municipality has to spend extra money to hold the person in jail. So what was going on a couple years ago is that courts were issuing these pay or serve warrants, resulting in people going straight to jail. But the court had conducted no inquiry into whether the failure to pay was willful, in which case somebody could theoretically be sent to jail constitutionally, or whether the failure to pay was because of poverty. And so the legislature 2 years ago enacted a statute that was designed to deal with that. And it says that you can't put somebody in jail for failure to pay unless you charge them with contempt of court for willful failure to comply with the court order, and then have a hearing on whether you are willfully withholding the money or whether you're just too poor to pay.
And by the way, this was a sizable victory for the ACLU. You didn't sue at this point, but what you did is the ACLU took the lead, if I'm recalling this correctly, saying here are examples of basically a modern debtor prison that a guy can't pay, so we're putting him in jail, which as a taxpayer makes no sense to me. And it seemed like it was fixed then. So now the law is that has to go to a judge, and that judge has to say, tell me if I got it right, I'm going to see if you can pay. If you're able to pay but refuse to pay, I might put you in jail. If you're not paying your fine, your traffic violation, because you're so poor, well then I can't put you in jail. That's the new law, right?
That's how it's supposed to be.
So problem solved. We're there. We don't need to talk about this anymore. Congratulations, you won. Everything's okay.
Credit the creativity of the municipal courts to figure a workaround. So now what we have discovered is the municipal court imposes a fine, say $400 fine. Person has a payment plan, $50 a month. Every monthly payment is a court appearance. And if you pay the $50, you don't have to appear. But if you haven't paid the $50, you have to appear in court. If you miss that court appearance, a warrant can issue, not for failure to pay. Those warrants are banned. It's a warrant for failure to appear.
All right, wait, time out here. Let me see if I've got this right. Now, I would have given you a fine that you couldn't pay and thrown you in jail. I can't do that anymore. So what I'm doing is saying you can pay the $500 back, but every time you got to come in and go to the court. If you miss going to the court, then I can throw you in jail. It has nothing to do with missing your fine. It has to do with that you didn't make your court appearance.
That's right. It's
the
warrants say failure to appear, and so somebody is arrested on that warrant, has to wait a few days before they can see a judge, and the person, again, winds up being put in jail because they were, or at least it includes people who they're being put in jail because they're too poor to pay their fines.
So when they make the payment, they have to go to court to make the payment. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, they can mail in the payment.
Okay.
They can mail in the payment, and then the court appearance is excused.
So in other words, if you don't have the money, you've got to go do the bureau. How much of an inconvenience is it to go to court? Is this just something that the judge is going to say, well, I just want to make sure, I want to talk to this guy, make sure that he truly can't pay?
If you have someone who's working, then somebody has to miss work and get the transportation to one of these municipal courts that might be, an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours away. If someone's not working, and a lot of these ordinance violations, it's really poor and homeless people who get caught up in this. They might not even have a way to get to court. And they probably fear that if they haven't paid and they go to court, they fear that they're going to go to jail. Because the municipal courts also are warning people, okay, if you don't pay your fine, you're going to jail. And just that threat of jail for non-payment is really a shortcut around what is really the constitutional procedure. The courts often forget to tell someone, if you don't have the money, if you're too poor to pay, I can't put you in jail. They forget to say that.
Well, give me an alternative, though. If somebody violates the law and they owe a fine, I mean, this is how we discourage bad behavior. You litter. We don't want people littering. We see you litter. I don't want to put you in jail for littering because that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm going to write you up and here's a fine. Pay the fine, learn your lesson, stop littering. That's the idea. If you can't pay the fine, why not just be lawless on those small offenses and you don't have to worry about it because you won't have to pay?
I think that for people who have the ability to pay, a fine works as the deterrent to channel people's behavior into behavior that complies with the law. For the really poverty-stricken folks, for the homeless folks, it just doesn't wind up making sense. It winds up putting people in jail because they're too poor to pay those fines. One possibility is the court could actually scale the magnitude of the fine to someone's actual ability to pay. Another possibility could be...
So in other words, Bill Gates would have to pay millions of dollars. The homeless guy would pay 25 cents.
Bill Gates would be protected by the maximum allowable fine under the statute, but there's nothing that forbids a court from lowering the fine to an amount that even a very poor person could pay. Or there's community service, which is another option that's available to the courts.
And the community service is a great idea, but if he doesn't want to do the community service, I love that idea, but if he doesn't want to do it, at some point, doesn't he need to go to jail because he hasn't done it?
If somebody is willfully refusing to comply with a lawful court order to do community service, somebody could be put in jail for that. But here's another problem with the community service. So many of the programs that we have seen require an upfront payment of a fee. And so there are people that don't have that money to even take advantage of the community service.
What are you looking for a fix? Because we're talking about this. You said there was a fix or two a couple of years ago. The courts have found a way around it. Are you trying to change something now?
Here's the thing. When private debt collectors want to collect a debt, the law doesn't allow them to use jail or the threat of jail to collect a debt. So when people owe fines to the courts, why do we let the courts use jail or the threat of jail to collect a debt? Maybe we should not give the courts that extra power that even private debt collectors don't have.
People want to learn more about the Colorado ACLU. Where's a good place for them to go?
www.aclu-co.org.
There you go. Mark, always good seeing you. Until next time.
Hey, we didn't get to talk about...
We'll fight about that one next time.
We didn't get to talk about Colorado Springs.
Oh, that's right. We didn't go. We'll fight about it later. Stay tuned.